everybody, welcome to another episode of Cleaning and Cocktails. You guys know what the show is about. It's about empowering the cleaning community. It's about bringing on industry professionals to talk about cleaning, right? Over some cocktails as well. But today I have the pleasure of bringing on cleaning business owners that are my friends, my colleagues. We're part of the same mastermind group. We've grown to know each other for over the last few years. And we're going to talk about mergers and acquisitions, you guys, because this is a real life scenario of that happening in the cleaning industry. So for many of our audience that doesn't know a lot about mergers and acquisitions, this is going to be super exciting because we don't really get to talk about this kind of stuff, you guys. So I want to have some fun. You guys know the show is just about shared experiences, talking about journeys and how we can help one another in this, what many people think is a boring and unglamorous industry. We make it fun. We make it sexy. We make it, enjoyable. So without further more, I've got three gentlemen on this call here with me. It's the first time I do three screens, everybody. So bear with us here. I got Jerry Flug, I got Blake, and I got Corey from OnPoint Building Services. I'm going to let them take over, but these guys are out of Southeast Virginia. They're, again, like I said, they're friends, man. We're part of the same mastermind group. So I've seen this come to fruition. So I'm super excited to share their journey. And I will start with you, Jerry, first. Why don't you, and we'll get into the company itself, but vice versa to what I just told you guys, how the format was going to look like. I changed it up right off the bat. Let's talk about Jerry Flood. Let's talk about Jerry, how you got into the cleaning industry, how you met Blake, Corey, how we'll lead up to how this happened, but I want to take a step back and talk about you guys individually.
Sure. Thanks, Ricky, for having us on today. We're looking forward to spending some time with you. And so I got in the industry probably about 15, 16 years ago. It was really out of necessity to take care of my parents. My dad got real sick during that time frame, and just needed another source of income, and really started exploring the cleaning industry. I thought this might be a good thing to look into. And during the process of doing some exploring, came across an older couple who was ready to sell their business. It was probably at the time about 20 employees, and I think probably did about 250, 300 in revenue. And they asked if I wanted to purchase, and I said, I think I would like to do that. And so we purchased the company back in 2007, and we probably, like many of your viewers, we landed around that $1.2 million mark and just could not get over it for the longest time, probably about 4 or 5 years. And we really started focusing on what is it going to take to get over that. And through just some different things I'm sure we'll get into later, we were able to bust through that $1.2 million mark. And then things just really started exploding for us. And probably what, 2 years ago, guys, we had just a little bit of interaction with each other, and then the process began talking really just about cultivating our area and creating healthy janitorial companies for people to lean on. Our first conversation, I don't believe, was really about merging. I think it was more about let's really make it happen in our area and have some good quality companies that people can lean on. So I've been in the industry about 16 years, and through Mastermind Group and BSCAI, I just really started making relationships and learned a lot about the business quickly by joining those entities, and they helped us to understand how to run our organization in a way that that wasn't a mom and pop organization, that it was a legitimate business. And getting over the hurdles over those 16 years, those two entities helped us tremendously. So yeah, I love the industry. I'm super glad to be a part of it. And it's been a real blessing to me and my family and our company for sure. So.
Nice. So see, I didn't know that part of it either. Is that you actually got into the space by purchasing?
Yeah. We purchased. That's one thing I learned. There's that adage of buy low, sell high, and I bought high, and but it was okay. It was a blessing to them, and I didn't know anything about it at my first time in, and so But yeah, it worked out well. The business, when we first purchased it, um, it was a small, like I said, a real small mom and pop company, but it was operating fairly well. It had probably about 10 really good customers. And they did everything from cleaning to maintenance to, hey, somebody left the door unlocked on my team. Can you go by and lock the door? And so,
Oh yeah,
uh,
the
yeah,
simple task that
yeah,
become
and
your
it made us
task.
very valuable to that customer. And most of those customers are still with us today. So,
It's like you got to think you are mission critical because you can open that door
yeah,
after hours.
for sure.
Cool. Well, Jerry, I mean, that's for people to realize that too. It's like so you didn't buy a franchise, right? Where I feel like buying a franchise, you got that support system of you're not in it alone. I mean, you really went into
Yeah,
it alone. I mean, buying not the same one, but uh, you didn't buy a framework. You bought an existing
yeah,
business that you for other people, uh, they may not have had everything in
yeah.
process or set up for you to
Yeah,
succeed.
yeah, it
So it
was a
was a
huge
risk.
risk. It being a privately owned organization, and it wasn't, a franchise or anything of that nature. Um, it was just two really good people who just did good business in their community. And they weren't the best business owners. They would always tell me, but they were good to their people and they were good to their customers. And so we tried to take that customer service element, and that's the one thing we built off of. That was
Yeah.
basically that's what I decided when I first bought. I said, okay, I'm going to build off of this customer service um, that they've created in the community. So
Okay. All right. Now, Blake, over to you, my man. Is how so you guys are from the same area. So I really quick though, I appreciate and I like that you guys approach this from a community aspect of, you guys are trying to, if I heard you right too, is you were empowering you were trying to empower other janitorial companies to really do good business, right? And raise that level of quality and standards for that area that you guys are from. And look what came out of it, right? There's a conversation that you guys that led to where we're at and talking about today. So it's like, okay, that's new to me that you guys didn't even go at it thinking right from day one that this is something you wanted to do. It really ended up cultivating and just coming about itself.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I just kept seeing Jerry's vans around town, and they just looked really legit. Yeah.
The competition.
I started looking at his website. I'm like, man, this guy looks legit. Like he seems like he knows what he's doing. And, I just kept watching him. We'd already bought two companies before in the history of our company. And, I just kept, you always like want to know about your competition. So I just kept watching them. And, Corey and I have a business mentor that we meet with. And, I was telling him about it. And he's like, wait a minute. I know that guy. He's like, I used to flip houses with him back in the day. It's like, oh, I do too. So it was a mutual friend that introduced Jerry and us. And first time we met, we got together for lunch and just talked about our companies and the industry. And we just kind of hit it off and striked up a friendship. And over the course of the next 2 years, we're able to help each other a lot, like especially during COVID when we didn't really know what was going on or how we were going to make it to the next day. We were able to give each other a lot of real-time advice and, just really kind of lean on one another as kind of, we were competitors, but we were, just like one another. Our companies were similar sizes. We had very similar cultures. It became more apparent the better we got to know each other. And we just kind of became friends over that time and really gained a mutual respect for one another. And so I think, Jerry had the most popular session at the BSCAI conference. He taught a session on culture. And I think that, we can get more into that, but that's been the number one thing that has made our two companies coming together go so well is that our cultures were so similar. And he did such a great job on culture that it made it very easy for us to come in and merge our culture with theirs,
Awesome, man. That's awesome. So you guys, if you guys are watching this too, Blake's got a secret weapon sitting next to him too that we'll talk about in due time here. But Blake, real quick, let's also talk about your journey to where you got to, right? So it's OnPoint Building Services, that original name of the original company?
Yeah. So I originally out of college was a commercial real estate broker with CBRE. I leased and sold warehouse spaces and office spaces, and probably a lot of people watching do work for CBRE on the property management side. And so, anyways, I got tired of starting every January from scratch and not having any ownership in any of the buildings or any recurring revenue. And I had friends that owned businesses, and specifically service businesses, landscaping, janitorial, that were doing really well with it. And I had a friend in Florida that basically taught me the business. And so I created a brand and looked for a company to buy, so I didn't have to. I quit my job with no income. And an old friend used to always say, ride two horses with one ass until you fall off of one of them, as long as you can, and that was kind of the strategy is, find a company that I could basically buy and roll under the brand that I had created. And so I had the company made, the website made, everything ready to launch, but I wanted to start with some contracts. I wouldn't start from scratch. And I knew Corey from church, and he was a business broker and had run multiple businesses before that. And he and his wife were working at this janitorial company and figured they wanted to get back. I'll let him talk about that, but they wanted to get back into business ownership, and we ended up doing it together.
Good. That's awesome. So again, stuff I did not know. So both of you guys entered into the space, acquiring a business. And I like how you put it, Blake, because I feel like that is how people probably look at it too, where it's, you're buying your salary, right? You're buying your income. Especially if it's those people that, that you're making a good amount of money in your full-time career, but it's just not enough and you're not passionate about it. So definitely the ideal situation is, you don't want to buy your happiness, but be passionate about what you're doing. And the fact that both of you guys went out and both of you took risk and look at where it brings you guys to where we're at today. So I wasn't even going to touch on this, but let's touch on it for a quick second. Do you guys recommend, knowing how it played out now, would you have started from scratch, or do you think the fact that you did buy an existing business, did it get you to where you're at sooner and quicker versus the people that literally start with, because I hear it all the time. I have the people that, Rick, I just got my first contract, just got my LLC, I just started the business. I feel like it's a tough first year for those people, right? Where if you buy an existing business, you got to leg up, I got to believe. So, what about you guys? Would you recommend that's how somebody gets into the space, is what I want to say?
I'll let Corey answer that.
I would say yes. I'm a little partial to it, but you just hit the nail on the head. It's a grind. It's so easy to go out of business when you don't have revenue. And starting with one contract is, you're one 30-day notice away from being out of business again. So, so it's a long grind to build up, a base of accounts. I think it's a great way to do it. I think you can also overpay and end up in a just as bad of a situation. So you don't just want to wing it. I think you want to make sure you make smart moves, but that's all relative, right? What's something worth? What someone's willing to pay, and everybody's willing to pay different stuff. So it's, and someone who's willing to work harder can figure things out a little bit quicker, maybe make more money quicker. And it's a better deal for them.
Now, all right, because I'm going to dig deep with Corey in a second here, but for Blake and Jerry too I had a great question right now. Hold on one second. As far as because I have a lot of people that'll say, Rick, I respect the grind. I respect the hustle. I respect starting from scratch, building something, right? To those that say, well, you guys, you're building something off of the hard work and grit from somebody else. Do you think is that just opinion based, you think? I mean, because I feel like it's still gritty. You still have to hustle. You still have to grind. You still have to establish your feeling and point and culture on this business that you just took over. If anything, I would say it's even harder if you do have employees. Like, it's almost like you have to change the mindset, right? Like, what would you say to the people that say, I started from account one versus you guys? Because I'm in the same boat, right? I bought a franchise myself, and I would do it 10 times over that way. It's fine, buying into an industry, right? But let's talk about the grit and hustle that those people may have a chip on their shoulder, that they started from scratch.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, Ricky, we're in the people business. So it doesn't matter whether you started from scratch or you bought into it. You still have to manage people, and you still have to build relationships. As much as we have been very fortunate, knock on wood, in the first 3 or 4 months here, Blake and Corey, it's incumbent upon them to start building relationships with employees and with customers that were on our team and now become part of the OnPoint family. That's important. And so I think whether there might be just a different mindset if you start, from the grind, so to speak, but it's all a grind. It doesn't matter. This is a service business. And, when you're dealing with people, that's your greatest asset and your greatest liability. And so you've got a lot of work on both sides of no matter where you come from or how you've gotten into this industry. The grind is there. It's just a different type. But I mean, the bottom line is you've got to work hard on building relationships across the board. The three of us, we met 2.5 years ago. And it started at lunch, and I knew right away, I'm like, these are the kind of guys I want to hang out with. Number one, they're way younger than me, so they make me look cool and hip, but at the same time, there was good mentoring going on between all three of us, not me to them and just them to me. It was, all three of us were learning from each other. Like Blake said, going through COVID, that whole battle of every day, just waking up and going, okay, I wonder what today looks like. So I think, number one, you can't be in this business if you don't have some sort of chip on your shoulder to begin with, to push and work hard. It's not an easy industry, but it's a rewarding industry. The thing I love about the industry the most is it's sustainable and very stable. Our blips are not very big, right? I mean, and like Corey mentioned earlier, that you're 30 days away, no matter how you look at it. So it becomes about building relationships and solving your customers' problems quickly for them. Get off their radar, and get stuff off their radar for them as well. And I think that's what makes our two companies blend so well. We both have that mindset. We still have it. And that's what allowed us to come together and go, hey, I think this is going to work because our mindset is customer centric and employee centric. We're very much want to take care of both sides of that family. So,
well, think about, it's the common saying, right? 2 heads is better than 1, 3 heads is better than 2. Like, it's just we're in a world where the word collaboration is in the forefront. Like, that people that collaborate win.
I would say to somebody,
there's nothing more.
I would say to somebody who's either contemplating or might not be able to move over that $1 million mark. You just may be at your capacity. Find somebody else that you can partner with, because I don't know about Blake and Corey, but I know I felt like I was probably getting to my capacity, and we started hiring in the right people, and our business started booming and growing. And then when the three of us got together, we realized, man, the assets that we have in people, plus what we knew collectively between the three of us, it's allowed us it's positioned us to be a potentially pretty large company in the near future. So,
yeah. And think about it, you guys. I mean, Corey, we'll start jamming on some statistics of the industry, right? Is 90%, even more, I think now, is they're operating under $1 million in revenue, right? So you're talking about the ultimate mom and pop industry is the cleaning industry, but not to say there isn't the $1 billion giants out there and the $100 million in revenue companies as well. Well, that's only like the top, 2 or 1% are operating at that revenue. The only way we get there is by working together, is by teaming up, is by doing joint ventures, is by sharing opportunities between us versus allowing the bigger guys to just keep winning and taking all that business, which you guys all know it's going to come back to us anyways because they're going to subcontract, right? So I love your approach. I love what you guys just, again, there's going to be so many more questions that we won't get an opportunity to talk about. So at the end too, if you guys don't mind, I will share LinkedIn profiles, the website, any way for anybody to get a hold of you, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to have questions on this because even me, right? I think about it. I did my first acquisition. It wasn't a cleaning company related, right? It was in the industry, but different. But I'm fascinated by if you have and Corey, I'll direct some of these questions to you, right? Is if you prep your company, if you're prepped either as the buyer or the seller, it makes things very possible, right? It makes things easier for people to sell to you or for you to buy somebody. So, I mean, Corey, before we get into that, I didn't give you a chance to talk about your job.
I don't feel slighted.
I know Blake touched on it before. I didn't even realize you owned a janitorial company as well, but I know you guys are friends, but like how did the world of entrepreneurship, how did that become an itch?
Yeah, I grew up with it. My dad has a business, still has a business partner, works for himself. So I was around it all the time. Blake, same deal. His dad had a business partner and owned his own business. So we both just kind of grew up with that entrepreneurial itch that needed to be scratched. And I graduated from William & Mary and kind of went straight into working for myself. Owned a garden center and a couple of small self-serve frozen yogurt businesses, and had bought and sold different things through the first 3 or 4 years of marriage right out of college. And my wife's from Virginia Beach, so we ended up back here. And her father-in-law does business valuation, so we started a small M&A company helping people buy and sell. I had done it a bunch. He had done some of it as well, and valued companies all the time. And this deal that kind of got us into the business came across the desk, and couldn't quit thinking about it. And, so Blake and I ended up getting connected through church and a mutual friend at the time, and we bought this thing. And it was about the same size as what Jerry's first acquisition was. Around $350,000 revenue, and
we lost half of it.
Yeah, and it was we were essentially a sub to a vendor, and they lost it, so we lost it. So we started off small enough. I feel like if you're under $500,000, you're starting off pretty small. You're grinding. The first $500,000 in revenue is a grind. So we kind of grew it back to where it was, and then
probably down to like what, 12 or 15,000 a month after we lost that.
Yeah.
So it's almost started from scratch.
Yeah, it got down to we lost about $15,000 a month right out of the gate. So no fault of our own, they just pulled it. So and then we got a couple big contracts actually with CBRE at the time. And just started chipping away at it. Got up to around $750,000 in revenue, and that's when we made our second acquisition. And I think to kind of touch on one of the points that you made, it's so interesting to like, what's a good fit? How do you position yourself? I think most companies that are for sale, and a lot of them, like you said, under $1 million in revenue, they have a customer makeup that just isn't as desirable, and it's that makes it the hardest. They've probably got 3 or 4 accounts where you're like, man, I'd really like to have that, but I've probably got to pay for the whole thing, or I've got to take the whole thing. And how do I get over this headache stuff and just to get the good stuff? And
so Corey, this is a perfect segue into, I didn't want to get too technical, but I think us laying out the foundation, even more so you guys than me here, is, talking about like what's a good fit, what are key indicators of a good business, what are red flags. You touched on, which we can just dive right into this one, right? Is I had the assumption, or I feel like people buy your clientele more so than your company when you're being looked at to be acquired, especially in our space, I think. Am I accurate with that as far as would you guys say well, you just said, 3 to 4 accounts are the only good ones out of the whole, all 100 of them. But is that a tactic as far as if it's a niche or a category that you want to get into or like, is that one of the indicators that you use to measure whether a company is?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I would say with us, the benefits of our deal with Jerry is we got a great base of employees. We had very little customer overlap. They were in markets that we weren't in, further out we're Southeast Virginia, but they were down into North Carolina, up past on the peninsula, past we call it the peninsula, up past Williamsburg. So geographically, it helped us have a bigger footprint, which allows us to grow more within that footprint through sales. They have a much heavier focus on medical, which we had some, but again, like
in churches,
gets you into, market segments,
schools.
So yeah, I think the employee component, the customer base, like all of the market segments, there's tons of different reasons to do it.
Yeah. Us and Jerry were very complementary as far as our customer bases. We didn't have a lot of overlap in serving the same customers. And the first 2 acquisitions were a lot different than this one. The second one that he's talking about, when we were about 750 in revenue and we bought another company that was about 750 in revenue and doubled in size, they did have a couple major accounts that we wanted that made the whole thing worth it to us. And some of the managers from that acquisition back in March of 2017 and most important contracts are still with us.
And a lot of those customers, you've seen it, like they're not switching. They love their vendor. They love their people. Those people show up every night. Like you're either buying them or you're going to go find somewhere else to sell to, someone else to sell to.
Some of the same frontline cleaners that came on with us from that acquisition are still cleaning those buildings.
Yeah, so that was going to be my the next point is, so we said clientele, you guys touched on employees, but like obviously the word culture is going to come hand in hand with this. The employee base too, so you're essentially buying new employees, right? That they're going to have to buy into your culture, your vision. And you guys already have said it, like Jerry's culture just was exactly what you guys had in mind and what you guys are trying to practice yourself. Is that another important piece? Should people be looking at, do you get the opportunity to speak to potential sellers, employees and get an inside look? Or is that a risk you're taking because you don't get to look behind the scenes like that when you're in this process? You guys don't
kind of like dating. I mean, you're getting to know them, and when you get to know somebody, you kind of get to know them as a person, and you can kind of tell, like, is this kind of person, like Jerry said, kind of person I want to hang out with, and then from there you can go, well, is this the type of person that would run a business the way that I'd want to run a business, or and as you get to know them better, and you start digging into the way they run their business and the way that their people are, and you can kind of get a picture of how different their culture is than yours. And the first 2 acquisitions, their cultures were a little bit more different, but they were smaller and it didn't matter as much. With this, it was way more important because we had like a lot more office people on both sides that are coming together and have to work together every day. As far as like frontline cleaners out in the field, like a lot of their frontline cleaners and our frontline cleaners still don't know each other because they all go to different buildings. So
yeah, but that's true. So it's more like the office team,
and then the field manager, the field managers come in multiple times or every day. They have to become a team and they have to be able to work together and have a common goal, and so that's the most important thing. It has to mesh.
I think one of the questions we asked of each other when we started the process was, it goes back to Ricky, the good to great, are these good people? Are they great people? And I think we started identifying who our great people were, and to determine whether is that fair, guys, to determine if this would work, and more so on the office and management level. And you kind of want to sell your, when you're on the selling side, you're kind of trying to say, hey, these are great people. But it's relative because my opinion of great might be different than their opinion of great. But in
Yeah.
general, you try to find balance between undersell and oversell on those people. But that's really where the rubber meets the road is once those people all get together and we saw and experienced and watched them function well together, the three of us kind of took a collective, you know, like I think this is going to work. These people really work well together. And that's part of developing the culture. It's so important. We talk about it all the time. If you're in that million, million two, million three, and you're trying to get over that next plateau, at some point, and I say this to guys that I'm mentoring or guys that are in my peer group that are in that range, you have to get out of working in the business and work on the business. Because when you have the opportunity like this that approaches, if you're in the business working it, then you become an asset that is hard to work through, right? If it's hard, if I was in the business heavy on a day-to-day basis, running things, it would have made this deal a lot harder to happen because how do we replace what Jerry's doing? Now, saying that 2 years ago when this process started, I was heavy in it. But I was realizing and learning, okay, as I get older, I can only do so much physically, but I need to replace myself in the operations side, replace myself in the sales side, and so you start looking for those great people. And when this opportunity comes along like this, and the three of us began to sit down and we compared our people and who could do what and how would they all work together. That's really where it happened, Ricky, is that group of core people in the management, supervision, and the office team. That's why this thing has gone so far. In my opinion, I think these guys have the same opinion, tremendously well. And it's because those people are the key components to the success of any merger acquisition. Because listen, if they were a $50 million company, and coming in and buying, my $3 million, $4 million company, it's still the same principle. It still comes down to who those people that work together on a day-to-day basis. Are they going to function well together?
I think it is.
Yeah, because I feel like you guys let me know. You guys actually could probably speak to this right now as we speak. I got to believe a lot of people from the outside looking in, not knowing how mergers and acquisitions happen, right? As small business owners, many of us don't know how this works. Is you might get the idea that Blake and Corey are buying Jerry's company, and they're going to let go of half the people. Why? Because it's going to increase their bottom line and this and that, and they have an existing infrastructure, they don't need it, so it's scary, right? Like I know for me, right, I'm at like 50 offers already just this year where I'm scared to say, this is my family, right? Like this is my family business that I don't know what would happen in other people's hands. Can you shed some light on how, is that very inaccurate? Or I guess it depends on who's the buyer, right? But in our world, right? Commercial cleaning, small business, medium size buying a small buying a small. What would you guys say people should be more open to?
I think our biggest concern all along, and I know me and Blake and Corey, we sat at the table eating lunch many times, and we all wanted to act like we knew what we were doing and we could make it happen, but all of us still had that angst of, is this gonna work well? But the people that were involved, our biggest concern on our side of the table was, are the people going to be taken care of and in place? And I think, I'll let Corey and Blake speak to it, but this wouldn't have happened if they couldn't keep the people that were already in place. And listen, Ricky, I understand your position too. I have a couple of family members that work in the business here, and it's just because their degree and their profession fit our company. I didn't hire them because they were, my sister-in-law or whatever it was. They were.
It doesn't matter about the last name. The
Right.
resume matched the position.
So we had to, I had to get over that hurdle a little bit, but my trust was in Corey and Blake, that belief that these guys are going to do what they say. And that just comes with spending time. Listen, they'll tell you the first time they offered, I said, no, I wasn't ready. And it was more because I was worried about, well, what about these people that we've brought in and that we've really committed to? and that takes time. You're going to have to spend time with these, with folks, and make sure that they are the fit. So, but Corey, go ahead. You were getting ready to say something. I apologize. I jumped in on you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's just a trust piece. You have to build trust. There's no short circuit for that. You just gotta put in the time. You hit the nail on the head.
Would you guys say, Corey and Blake, would you guys say that a good metric or measure of a good company to purchase is what, like Jerry just said, is an owner that is working and being a creative and an innovator and a visionary for the business versus knee deep into operations, day to day, mission critical component of the organization. If they're gone, shit hits the fan. Like, I mean, because Jerry, you touched on it. And I think that's actually a good point to touch on. Is I know hearing that's actually something I would probably be looking at then, is buying a company that ownership is not in the picture day to day.
I mean, it's kind of both, because a lot of those visionaries don't make money. There's not much worth buying if there's
some ideas are still up in the club.
That's true. That is so true. Corey's the straight shooter in this bunch, man. He's a straight shooter.
Hey, you need that. You need that. You need the guy that says no. I've got a couple of those, and you're not afraid to say.
Yeah, no, I think you've got a great point, Jerry. I mean, you got to have people that are looking up and out. If there's no direction, like where there's no vision, people will perish. And same thing from a profitability standpoint. Most of the time, what you're buying is a stream of cash flows to then pay for what you're buying. And that if it's not profitable, then don't waste your time unless there's a way to make it profitable.
Yeah, that's a very simple breakdown of mergers and acquisitions. The more cash flow, the more it's worth. The more spread out the contracts and the customers are, the more it's worth. The lower the risk, the more it's worth.
Would you guys? So let's talk. Any points you guys want to make stand out as far as do's and don'ts? If anybody is listening and watching, and they're like, I'm at that point. I'm thinking about acquiring a company. I'm getting healthy. Like, what are some, just off the top of your head, do's and don'ts when you're talking about?
I'd say, Jerry had a CPA as his controller, and his financials were very straightforward. And I feel like we've had acquisitions in the past where like there's a bunch of funny money going on, where like one guy in particular like spent like $15,000 or $20,000 on suits for a cleaning company, like, and it was just like not really all accounted for very well. And so, when the seller is trying to tell you, there's actually a lot more cash there, it's great when you're the owner of the business and you got the money going on, but when you're trying to sell your company, it's not good anymore. You want your company to look profitable on your financials and not just like, oh, trust me, there's a lot more cash there,
Yeah.
So actually, that brings me to the point. Like, I have heard this from people too, and it's something that we're working on and very proud of getting to a point too, where you should actually, even if you never think you're going to sell as a company, get prepared to, as if you were going to sell or somebody was going to give you an offer, your financials can speak well on your behalf. Because I got to, when I first started, you guys, I was big on, you can't make too much money, you're going to get taxed, and don't show all this. Like, it's like, yeah, that makes sense, I guess, at some point. But if you're actually an established business and you're growing and you need lots of credits and you're trying to buy property, your financials have to be strong. Like, you have to show profit. You have to show, a strong EBITDA. So now let's talk. What if, again, 90% operating at under $1 million in revenue, guys? A lot of us don't have an accounting team. A lot of us don't have a great CPA. What are things or tools or resources that people can take advantage of as small business owners that aren't as costly, that can start helping them start to get their financials in order, if they're not a financial background heavy?
I think for me early on when I said that, I was in the same boat, and I used to say, I don't have the money for a CPA or somebody to come on board. But here's what Gerard told me this, you guys, and also another friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours. You can never, ever go wrong by having the best CPA and the best lawyer in business. Don't cut corners there. Whatever you do, don't cut corners there. And I think that has helped us tremendously. Even when I didn't have anybody on board, just in the last year, we've hired a full-time CPA, and now part of the merger. We would still spend quite a hefty penny making sure things were done correctly, because there's two places you don't want to get in trouble: at home and then with the IRS. So make sure you keep everybody happy in those two camps, and a good.
I
Right.
can deal with my wife.
Yeah.
I can deal with.
Yeah, you think you can deal with her until you mess things up at home, right? But I think that's important, is making sure you do that. And listen, these two guys are super sharp. They're both very sharp, and someday soon somebody will come to them and say, "Hey, we're interested in buying OnPoint Building Services because we see what you're doing and we think it's going to be good." And they're preparing. I don't know what their future holds, but they're doing things the right way, because they know that inevitably that could happen. And so even at $1 million, you should be running your business ethically well. You should be running it financially well, and you should be treating people well. And those things will be honored, and they'll begin to work well. If you start getting tricky with your finances, it's going to backfire on you, and you're going to be fighting that for a long time. And so just run things really well, and it'll make it attractive. And listen, when they came to me, the first thing I was worried about, I'm like, man, I hope this thing is profitable enough, because I didn't know. I mean, I knew it was running well. I knew we had money, and we had capital to do things, but what does that mean? So, and another point too, Ricky, I want to make that, when you said do's and don'ts, I think it's important. And we grew really strong together, by beating as much of the dirt out of the pre-lawyer conversations of just trying to come up with as many thoughts and plans that we could do ahead of time. So when we went to lawyers, which are necessary evils, there was a lot of information already on the table, and we tried to get our lawyers to work together on that. But the three of us knew what we wanted and how we wanted things to happen. And I think that's a big thing. Trying to prepare ahead of time.
Jared, that's a great point. Yeah. It's almost like, this just makes me think of things that we could actually, I could pick your guys' brains about and collaborate with you guys on, as far as the framework, just easy, understandable, digestible, bullet point checklist.
And we had the benefit of
small business. Building my startup, I paid way more than I needed to on lawyer fees and preparation, launching the wrong business entity when I shouldn't have. Like a lot of things that if I would have just had a decent basic checklist on the how-to, I would have saved myself a lot of money, right? And like you said, if we're going to really empower the industry, there's probably playbooks and some framework we could work on, because it's only going to help the bottom, right? The bottom is going to raise up if we help small businesses.
The three of us, we spent a lot of money on this deal with lawyers, but I think we saved ourselves some money too. But they're going to charge you. They're going to charge you what they charge you. But the fact that Corey had the background he has, and Blake's passion to for this industry and to get things moving. And we really worked hard on that as much as we could ahead of time. Work through those things as much as you can before you jump into the lawyer side. Because I feel like, and these guys, I think would say the same, we cleared a lot of stuff up before we got heavy into it. We were able to say, we've already made these decisions. And then lawyers get involved and they murk it all up like, did you really decide that or not? We did. So,
a lot of the most important conversations happened over a lunch or a dinner long before we got the attorneys involved. But I would say if you get somebody an attorney, if you're looking to do a deal that focuses on mergers and acquisitions, most of them will have a really good checklist that they'll give you for free, that you can use that checklist to start working on how you put together a deal, so that when you bring a letter of intent to them to, make a contract out of, or a purchase agreement, you've already answered a lot of the questions they're going to ask. They're going to ask you, and you're going to save yourself a little bit of money that way.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a do or a don't, but you're essentially combining money with emotion and friendship, at least friendship in our case, some sort of relationship. Usually there's some sort of ongoing relationship with the person after the fact that you're buying from. And just that confluence of those three things, it's just really important to navigate those conversations of your emotions and the money components and how are we going to continue to be friends and work together, just with more honesty than is probably necessary. Just be really upfront and direct, and maybe that's a do. But I feel like it saved us a lot of headache by being
For sure.
just really straightforward and acknowledging, like, we still have to be friends. We still have to navigate this. Nobody wants hurt feelings. Nobody wants to feel like they got ripped off. So a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, but at the end, it's like it's still business though. And I got to tell you guys, it's a business. It's, this is a topic I've wanted to discuss for a long time coming, just because I feel like this industry is on the spotlight, right? We know COVID showed it, right? We're known as recession and now pandemic proof. And I got to tell you, private equity their eyeballs are all over this industry right now. I know it personally because of what I've seen coming in. But does that make you guys excited too? Like this, it's like the more we can build the business, grow these businesses together, scale it, make it more, just exciting all around, but from a financial aspect, culture aspect, tech forward aspect, we can build our own destinies here. If you think about it, right? Like we know what people, we're good businessmen, right? You guys have been, businesswomen, businessmen. And it sounds like you guys know what you're doing here. So I know the end goal is to continue to big.
I'm glad we got you cool.
Ricky, come on! I know a broker for
like
these guys. They'll take $20 million today if you want to buy them.
No, come on.
Maybe not.
So it's like this should be spoken about more. What you guys did. And there's one thing I forgot to touch on because this has been sticking to me right now. When you said, Blake, a $750,000 company buying a $750,000 company. Until recently, I would have said that makes no sense. How is that possible? How can that company at $750K in revenue, one, afford to buy another company equal in size? Number two, how does that happen, right? But I've learned more that it can. I mean, can you elaborate on? Because I got to believe a lot of people would think that's just not. How does $1 million company buy $1 million company with the constraints that were given by banking and institutions? I mean, could you guys touch on that a little bit, or Blake, touch on that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the first two acquisitions that we did were very different than this one. The first one that was very small was a husband and a wife that were young. They built this business, and they wanted to move out of the area. They wanted to move actually to Chicago to be closer to family and get out of the industry. And so they ended up structuring a deal that was very favorable to us and very fair, and it wasn't extremely expensive. I mean, relative to the size of the business. And then the second one was kind of the same thing, where it was a cleaning company that was a division of a construction company, and they used to be a lot bigger. They lost some contracts, and the cleaning division was probably taking their focus off the golden goose, which was the construction. That was their real thing that was big and they were well known for. And they were kind of sick of it. And so they wanted to walk away. And so I'd say those are totally different situations than like somebody like Jerry, who's built a company and built it over many years and has long-standing relationships and really, really good employees from top to bottom and very profitable. The price difference, percentage-wise between those two type things are completely different animals. And so
fair to say it's situational based,
Completely
right? Like it is like if it's a fire sale, it's a fire sale. If it's hardball,
Yeah,
it's
if a company's not
depends
making
on-
money, you might be able to come in and like figure they might not just know what they were doing. You can buy it for almost nothing if they're not making money. They want to get out, and so you can sometimes situations like that you can change a few things and go from like in one particular instance they were using paper timekeeping and everybody was writing 4 hours a night and working 3 hours a night. And I mean we're talking, and they had.
Anybody doing paper timekeeping?
And they had probably 27 people in a building that they needed 17. All of them paying 4 hours a night when they're working 3. And in night one it became profitable.
So I mean, this jumps into a different topic too. So we got probably like another 10 minutes here too, guys, too. I don't, like I said, I don't like to keep it going for too long, but there's so much juicy stuff we can talk about. But I wanted to touch on like almost like your scenario. It's only 3-4 months in, I think, right now, right? Are you guys
October 1st
how long
was the first day.
Okay. So I feel like people also have to think about like when you're thinking about acquiring a company or merging companies together with somebody, think about the compliments that company is going to give you, and think about the personnel, right? Everybody's struggling with staffing right now. Everybody, I know I joke around with friends too, but it's like, man, you got a rock star management team where you got, a couple of these employees are awesome. And it's like, that's what you actually could unite with a merger too, is you could, the benefits or the shining points that these type of companies have that you're purchasing or thinking about acquiring make you as a company that much better. So it's not, we can't have, people shouldn't always think about, I'm going to acquire that company and just do it my way, take it over. It's like, if you actually work together or use the assets the right way, I mean, you could build something pretty outstanding, right? And
for sure. I mean, that was one of the highlights of merging our teams, is we knew that there were definitely going to be some things that we were doing better than Davis and vice versa. We had no question that there were a lot of best practices that just neither of us knew what the other was doing, and it was going to come out better in the end. I think you also, back to like the type of customer or the type of company that you're looking to buy. There's some that, if you're $5+ million and you're looking at $1 million company, you can just gobble them up and shove your processes and procedures down their throat and take anything that's good and move on. I think if it's when it's kind of a merger of equals, like what we had with Jerry, it's a little bit more of a dance because they have a ton of office staff that are used to doing, that core team that you mentioned, they have their way of doing things. We have our way of doing things. So it's got to be a lot more slowly implemented and it's got to be more methodical. So there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of struggle when you're dealing with that many people and that many relationships. And they're already in some sort of turmoil that their job is changing and they've got that job security thing going on. And now you're asking me to change the process. So it's like, you got to take the right steps and be careful.
But I feel like that's what leads to culture too, again, right, guys? Like, I feel like the word culture it's got to be one of the top 3 things that when, how an acquisition can go well or how a company could be more appealing is the culture. Because if they're in it for the right reasons, your team is bought in. What do we all say at the end of the day? If it's better for the company, that's it, right? Like if this is for the better of the company, then everybody has to respect that decision.
I think one thing that, and we use this term kind of vaguely up front, but it's happening more and more, like Corey said, is, you come in and everybody's worried about their job immediately. That's the first worry that everybody has. But we started with this word called blending. We want to blend our processes, our people, and what they're good at, what we were good at. And we want to blend that over time. And I think, all 3 of us championing that.
Because blend doesn't change. Blend doesn't change.
That's something we said, hey, we're gonna run, on rails, just like we're gonna keep doing like we were doing. And as we see that we can blend certain things, we'll start doing that together. over time. And I think, even now, I think that's happened quicker than we even thought. We were looking at 6 months to go, hey, okay, what things can we blend? But it happens organically on a day-to-day basis. Hey, Davis was doing this, let's do that. Or OnPoint was doing this, let's do that. And we're empowering the people that are in those great people that are in those positions to do it. That's what, Corey and Blake are so good at, is just saying, yeah, let's go for it. Let's do it this way. And then the team puts those processes.
Yeah.
So it's the blending of those two companies. The culture was already there. We just determined up front that this won't work if the cultures aren't the same. So we knew out a year out that our companies were functioning with the same culture. So it's the blending of those policies and procedures that's made this company really strong. I mean, we went from being two independently owned and operated companies to the largest locally owned janitorial company in this region. And and possibly
is that somewhere. I think I saw Blake post that, or you post that, Jerry. Like, man, that's something, right? For you to be able to say, by us coming together, we have become the largest, privately owned firm in a certain region.
It is.
That's a big deal,
our customers,
right?
our customers know that now. Yeah. The
Yeah.
customers know that, and they realize, hey, this is a solid deal for them as well. Even the big medical conglomerate that's here that, we've kind of cornered the market on. And like Corey said, they weren't doing as much medical. Well, now OnPoint Building Services is the premier medical cleaning company in Hampton Roads. I mean, it's, and that's, we feel confident in saying that because it's true, right? You got to look at the amount of square footage compared to the minimal amount of complaints and the services that we offer. So, so those are all things that you have to look at as you move down the road. If you're going to look into doing this merger and acquisition, of having that information ahead of time and being able to say, hey, we feel like we can blend these two companies together to work well. So there's more than one way to skin a cat for sure. But
I'd say also, in a case like this, we felt like their leadership team was so awesome that it potentially lowered the risk profile of their company, of bringing two companies together. Because as you know, in our industry, most stuff is a 30-day out. And so it's not like you're getting all these like annual contracts that you are guaranteed that you're going to have this revenue stream. Like you're betting on yourself, not only to like have their customers like you too, but also their employees like you too. So we hired every single one of their employees, and we essentially offered them all the chance to come over, and they all took it. But like, there's always the chance that they're like, I don't like these guys. Screw this. I'm out. I'm going to go do something else. And so if you're on the buying side, you got to bet on yourself that you can like win all of their people over, because that's a risk too, that you can like, maybe all the contracts come over, but a couple of their key people say, I don't like these guys, or I don't like this new company, and everybody in their company loved Jerry, but like they didn't know Corey and I. And so Corey and I have had to spend the last 3 months, and we're not done yet, building relationships with all of them. And that takes time. He's been doing it for years and years and years with these people. And we're going to have to continue to do that. But like, what makes this thing work so well so far is that we haven't lost one important person, or one person at all, really, as far as like managers go. Everybody has bought in, and everybody.
Yeah, that's got to speak to the success of the transition so far. Again, clients are important, but the team members, not one leaving, speaks to their commitment, right? And you guys, that this is going to work. This is good. We're in a good place here. This is because that's what would be scary, right?
Especially now.
They leave. What did we miscommunicate?
Yeah, especially with the amount of jobs that are easy to get. So.
Yeah. Cool. So guys, I have one more question and then one more out to end the conversation. But again, we could keep going here, guys. But I think I would not do this conversation or topic justice if I didn't touch on this. For the everyday small business owner that is even thinking about going out to look for a company or selling their company, is there any kind of standard to, let's use these numbers for example. If I am $1 million business in revenue, what are the percentages of, operating and labor and things like, is there a common standard to what would I be able to get for that $1 million in revenue business? Or should I not even be looking at top line and care more about profitability? Like, could you guys throw out some kind of numbers as far as if there's somebody listening saying, hey, I have $1 million business, what could I get for my business? I know, like you said, Corey, it's what someone's going to pay for, but standard, like what's a good standard for?
Yeah, I feel like your CPA is probably going to tell you anywhere from 2 to 4 times free cash flow after someone is paid to run it. So if it's $1 million business and the owner takes home, say, $300,000,
including salary.
Yeah, including salary, and they pay themselves. They pay themselves $100 just for round numbers. Then I would say on average it's worth $600. Like, but that's $1,000.
No, because I've heard 2 to 4. Yeah, I've actually 2 to 4 is sexier than probably before COVID. It was probably 1 to 2, right? Or even
and those multiples go up as the size of the company goes up. You start. There's called EBITDA multipliers where you start to get into the much bigger range of like a $2 to $5 million range. You start getting into the 5 to 7x. But that's
so Blake, yes. Well, for somebody again, layman's terms on, because I hear that too, 1x, 2x, 5x, right? We're not technology, so we can't get 10x. But what is, when you say 5x, what is the 5x number? What is the multiple of? I know you said free cash flow, Corey, but could you guys explain that a little bit more? What number should
I would consider it net income. But a lot of people, are running things through their business that make net income lower. So you want normalized cash flows, which would be taking out interest expenses that the seller has if they've got any loans or debt, depreciation or amortization, and then any taxes, because everyone's taxes are usually at a different rate. And then anything that they're using the business for that you would not use it for, like if they put their vacations on the business, or if they, to Blake's point, the guy that bought his clothes through the business, you would add those things back and give you an understanding of what your free cash flow is annually, and then multiply that out for a multiplier that or a multiple that you feel is reasonable for it.
So that's why my brother's always calling me and texting me about my travel expenses. And my restaurant expenses.
Keep it as clean as you can. Even at $1 million, keep your business as clean as you can. Especially, I would say this anyway, but especially now, like you've mentioned, Ricky, and during this time, we're under the spotlight. And even while this was happening, and even since, I probably get 3 or 4 emails a day or phone calls about purchasing the company, and I'm telling people, we've already done that. And
like, bro, do your homework, man.
So,
don't you know already?
Right.
We already sold.
So the key is keep really clean books. Keep your personal. If the company's if it's profitable and you're making money, take the money as your CPA tells you to take it, but keep it clean so that it's not as hard on people to go, well, do we add that back in or not? I feel like we did a pretty good job of that. That way, that EBITDA score and that 1, 2, 3, 4 times 5, 6, whatever it turns out to be, is a lot easier to calculate because, I'm sure if Corey and Blake saw a $1 million company that was a ditch in the business in this area that they wanted, they'd look at it and go, okay, we're going to jump on that pretty quickly. But it's got to be clean. And so that my encouragement to the guys that are in that, below the $1 million is, keep everything as clean as you can, work hard, and continue to grind, but keep your books clean. That'll help you tremendously in the long run.
Yeah. And not to sound like a broken record, but if it's not clean, then it's just going to be worthless, right? If you're asking me to take on more risk, I'm going to offer less for,
that's great. Yeah.
In compensation for that risk.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, we've hit the end, but before we leave, any last minute things you guys want to share that we didn't get to touch on that you feel would be important to leave the audience with?
I'd love to
Speechless.
you.
Left you guys speechless. Boom. I did my
You,
job.
just want to thank you for all you do for our industry. I feel like this podcast, and you're involved in so many ways in our industry, and with our masterminds group and BSCAI, and I'm just grateful for the way that you bring people together in the industry and add a lot of value. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's
Appreciate
been
it,
fun
man.
to watch your
Appreciate it.
journey, as well. And listen, my encouragement would be to, anybody in the industry that's struggling, or, they're young in the industry, or they're new to it, or they're in that lower tier right now. Keep fighting. And listen, if there's people on your bus that are in the wrong seat, put them in the right seat. If they don't need to be on your bus, get them off the bus. But keep fighting, working hard. This is a really, really, like you said earlier, it's a sustainable business. It's recession proof, and like you said, now it's COVID proof. And it just keep fighting hard, because it is worth it. Your goals for your family and your financial plans, they can happen in this industry pretty well if you just keep fighting hard.
And if you go and you buy a company to get into this industry, don't expect that you're not going to grind.
Yeah.
Both us and Jerry, we bought small companies to get into the industry. We had some real grind years where we were, doing the same thing that you used to do, out doing floors and, walking 8 miles inside a building, inspecting everything at night, and, getting up at 4 a.m. and inspecting buildings because we couldn't fit it in the night before, and, the 16, 18-hour days. We had multiple years of that kind of stuff, even though we bought a business to get started.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys taking the
Totally
time out of
honor.
your busy days.
Totally honor.
Yeah, everybody, like I said earlier in the middle of the episode, on the YouTube side, you guys will see everybody's LinkedIn, the company's websites, their social media channels like Instagram and Facebook. If you guys have any questions for these guys, I'm sure they'll be open to answering. Just please reach out. We're here to support. We're here to help. We're here to empower our space, because it's an industry that, as you guys can see with these guys, it's changed my life. It's changed their life. And I know it's changing many people's lives. So another episode of Cleaning Cocktails. Until next time, guys, cheers. I forgot the cheers in the beginning. Again, I am the absolute worst.